My name is Dorian Hale, I'm 26 years old, and for most of my life, I thought family meant loyalty, love, and blood-deep trust. I grew up in Connecticut, where winters sting like knives and summers smell of salt from the Long Island Sound. My parents raised me with discipline wrapped in affection, believing that honesty was the currency of life. I believed that too, until the day I found out that my older brother, Caleb, had done the unthinkable. He stole something I had dreamed of my whole life. Something my late grandfather had built for me, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, sacrifice by sacrifice. A $6 million trust fund. The money wasn't just wealth, it was supposed to be my start, my wings, my way to build a future free from fear and debt. And yet, with one betrayal, my brother burned that dream to ash. I still remember the call that shattered my morning. It was a rainy Thursday, and I was nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee in my tiny apartment, scrolling through job boards because I wanted purpose beyond money. Then, my lawyer's voice came through the receiver, cracked with something heavy. "Dorian, it seems Caleb accessed the trust." The words didn't make sense. Accessed? How could Caleb have touched what wasn't his? "He filed documents in your name," the lawyer continued, forged signatures, transferred the funds. "The trust is empty." Empty. The word sliced through me like a shard of glass. I dropped my cup, the coffee bleeding across the floor like a crime scene. $6 million, my inheritance, my chance at life, gone in the hands of my own blood. I tried calling Caleb immediately, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. He didn't pick up. Text after text went unanswered. Anger surged, mixing with disbelief, until my chest ached. How could he do this? Caleb was 31, older, supposed to be the one who protected me. Growing up, he used to tuck me in at night when Mom worked late shifts. He was the brother who taught me how to ride a bike and wiped my tears after bullies shoved me around. And yet, behind that memory, there was always a shadow in him, greed flickering like a flame. I remembered him stealing from my piggy bank at 12, lying to my face with a smile. Maybe I should have seen this coming. Maybe I was too blind. By evening, my mother called. Her voice was jagged with worry. "Dorian, I'm so sorry. Caleb said you told him you didn't want the money. That you signed it over." My stomach dropped. Lies. He was weaving lies even to our parents. "Mom," I whispered, shaking, "I would never. You know I wouldn't." She cried softly into the phone, and I could hear the shame in her sobs. Shame that her eldest had betrayed her youngest. Shame that family bonds meant nothing in the face of greed. "Don't hate him," she begged. "But how do you not hate someone who stripped you of everything?" Hate wasn't even the right word. It was something darker. Something primal. Something that wanted justice. The next day, I went to Caleb's house, a sprawling colonial that screamed of the stolen wealth he had no right to touch. My fists trembled as I knocked. He opened the door in a silk robe, holding a glass of whiskey, his smirk cutting into me like a blade. "Dorian," he drawled, "you're here sooner than I thought." He didn't even deny it. Didn't hide it. The arrogance on his face made me dizzy. "You stole my life," I hissed, my voice shaking. He chuckled, sipping his drink. "Don't be dramatic. You were never going to use that money wisely. Consider it redistribution. Redistribution. As if betrayal could be rebranded as charity. I wanted to hit him, to scream, to tear the smugness from his face, but I stood frozen. My whole body pulsed with rage, but he had all the power now, or so he thought. That night, I didn't sleep. My walls closed in as the rain battered the windows, and I stared at the ceiling, replaying every second of Caleb's smirk. I thought about the years I'd spent waiting tables through college, the loans I had taken, the nights I skipped meals just to pay rent, all while $6 million was waiting for me, stolen now by the one person who shared my blood. I thought about my grandfather, the man who had built that trust. A World War II veteran who had worked as a mechanic until his hands bled. He saved every dime so his grandchildren wouldn't suffer like he did. He believed in fairness, in family, in promises. And now Caleb had spat on that legacy. I whispered into the darkness, "I'll get it back. I swear I will." My voice cracked, but it was a vow. 2 days later, fate twisted. I got a call from Caleb, of all people. His voice was frantic, desperate, stripped of all arrogance. "Dorian, I need your help." My chest tightened. The audacity. The man who had stolen everything now dared to ask for help? "Why the hell would I help you?" I snapped. His breathing was ragged. "Because it's about Dad's estate. There's something I can't access without you. A legal requirement. It involves DNA." I froze, the words crashing into me like a tidal wave. DNA. My stomach churned. What did he mean? "You'll see," he muttered, his voice breaking. "Please. Without your test, I can't move forward. And trust me, you'll want to know why." I slammed the phone down, shaking uncontrollably. DNA. My mind raced with possibilities. Was Caleb lying again, weaving another trap? Or was there some truth hidden in his panic? The thought of helping him made bile rise in my throat. He had stolen my future, and now he dared to need me. But a seed of curiosity sprouted in the soil of my rage. What was so important that Caleb, prideful, smug Caleb, would beg for my help? I knew then that my story wasn't over. Revenge wasn't just about money. It was about truth. And if my DNA was the key to unraveling Caleb's lies, then maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to burn him with the fire he had lit inside me. But as I sat there, my fists clenched, my jaw tight, I felt something deeper gnawing at me. What if this DNA test revealed something I wasn't ready to hear? Something about my family, my blood, myself? Could I handle it? I wanted revenge, yes, but I also wanted peace. I wanted answers. The kind that scorched the earth clean. I looked out at the storm outside my window, lightning splitting the sky, and I whispered, "If you think you've won, Caleb, you're wrong. You just handed me the match." I had no idea then how dark the truth would be, or how far revenge would drive me. But I knew one thing: the game had only begun. The morning after Caleb's desperate call, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the phone, the silence louder than any storm. His words replayed in my mind, "Without your DNA, I can't move forward." It felt like bait dangling before a starving animal, and I hated myself for even considering it. But my gut gnawed at me. What could he possibly need from me? The trust fund was already gone. He had already stolen everything. So why would DNA matter now? A part of me wanted to ignore him forever, to cut him out of my life like a tumor. But another part, the side of me that craved answers, kept whispering, what if this is bigger than the money? My coffee went cold untouched as I realized that the path forward wasn't simple. Revenge wasn't just about retribution anymore. It was about uncovering the secrets he was trying to bury. Flashbacks of our childhood started rushing back, each memory sharpened by betrayal. I remembered how Caleb always craved more. When we were kids, Mom bought us matching toy trucks. Mine was bright blue, his fire red. He wanted both. He tricked me into trading by promising me candy, then laughed when he ate it in front of me. It seemed small at the time, but those small betrayals built into something darker. By high school, he was the golden child, the athlete, the charming one, the favorite at every family gathering. I was the shadow, quieter, softer, always trying to please. And yet, our grandfather loved us equally, pouring his savings into trust funds that were meant to balance the scales. Caleb had everything: looks, confidence, connections. The trust was my one chance to stand equal. Maybe that was why he couldn't resist stealing it. He couldn't bear the thought of me catching up. I still remembered the day grandfather told me about the trust. It was summer, and we sat on the porch of his little lake house in New Hampshire. His hands, rough with grease and age, held mine tightly. "Dorian," he said, his voice steady despite the rasp of old lungs, "this fund isn't just money. It's freedom. It's for you to build something lasting." I was only 15, but the weight of his words carved deep into me. He saw me, not as Caleb's shadow, but as my own man. "Don't waste it," he warned. "And don't let anyone take it from you." Those words haunted me now, echoing like thunder. He must have known, even then, what Caleb was capable of. Maybe he saw the greed, the hunger, the storm brewing behind Caleb's charming smile. I clenched my fists, whispering to myself, "I won't let your sacrifice be for nothing, Grandpa. I swear I won't." After work, I drove to Mom's house, hoping for clarity. She lived in a modest bungalow outside Hartford, her garden blooming with roses she tended like children. When she opened the door, her eyes were swollen, red from crying. She didn't need to say anything. I knew she'd been torn between her sons. "You've spoken to him?" I asked, my voice tight. She nodded. He says he needs your cooperation, Dorian. He begged me to convince you." My throat burned. Cooperation? After stealing everything? She touched my hand, trembling. "He said it's about proof. Something with Dad's estate. Something only your DNA can settle." I pulled back, anger flaring. "Do you trust him?" She looked at me with broken eyes and whispered, "I don't know anymore." That was the truth. None of us knew who Caleb really was. Maybe we never had. That night, I researched frantically, pulling up legal forums, estate law articles, anything I could find. My father, Henry Hale, had passed when I was 17. He left a modest estate, insurance, bonds, some land in Maine. It had been settled long ago, or so I thought. Why would DNA matter now, years later? I stumbled across cases where heirs contested legitimacy, where hidden children appeared, where bloodlines determined millions. A sick thought clawed its way into my mind. What if Caleb wasn't Dad's son? Or worse, what if I wasn't? My heart thundered as I imagined the fallout. No wonder Caleb needed me. Without my cooperation, maybe he couldn't prove his claim. And without proof, maybe his new stolen empire could crumble. My pulse raced as the possibilities twisted around me like snakes. Revenge suddenly looked less like violence and more like patience. If Caleb needed me, then maybe I had leverage. The following day, Caleb called again. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity strangled my pride. "Dorian," he said, his tone cracked with urgency, "we need to meet. In person. Please." I kept my voice cold. "Why should I?" He sighed, and for the first time, I heard fear in him. "Because the truth isn't what you think. Dad had secrets. If you don't believe me, you'll see for yourself. But I need you. Without your test, the court won't move forward." My jaw tightened. Court. So this wasn't just desperation. It was legal, binding, something official. He couldn't fake this. "Meet me at Dad's old office," he added. The mention of that place, the dusty building downtown where my father spent years as an accountant, hit me like a punch. It was the last place I saw him alive. My chest burned with grief and anger, but also with determination. I drove there the next afternoon, the late summer heat pressing against my skin. The building looked smaller now, abandoned, its paint peeling, windows clouded with dust. Memories flooded me, Dad sitting at his desk, Caleb spinning in the leather chair, me balancing on a stool to see over the ledgers. Those days felt like centuries ago. I parked and saw Caleb already waiting, his luxury car gleaming in the lot. He looked different, disheveled, hollow-eyed, stripped of the arrogance he wore like armor. When he saw me, relief washed over his face. "You came," he breathed. I kept my distance. "Talk." He gestured toward the office. "Inside. I can't explain everything out here." Reluctantly, I followed, every step heavy with suspicion. The office smelled of dust and old paper, the ghost of my father lingering in every corner. Caleb turned to me, his eyes desperate. "Dorian, there's something you don't know." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents, dropping them onto the desk with trembling hands. "These are files from Dad's safe," he said, his voice unsteady. "I found them when I went through his estate records. They don't add up." My pulse quickened as I scanned the papers. Birth certificates, letters, legal notes. And then my breath caught. My name was there, written beside words that made my vision blur. Subject of paternity test requested. My chest heaved as I read further. Notes about a dispute, a question over whether Henry Hale was truly my biological father. My hands shook violently. "You're lying," I spat, though the evidence stared back at me. Caleb's face twisted with fear. "I wish I was. But this is why I need your DNA. Without it, I can't prove my rights. And without it, neither of us will know the truth." I felt the walls close in, the weight of a lifetime pressing down. My father, the man I had idolized, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who carried me on his shoulders, who smelled of coffee and ink, was he not really my father? Was my entire existence built on a lie? Rage, grief, and confusion tangled inside me until I thought I would choke. Caleb's eyes burned into mine, pleading, vulnerable for the first time. "Help me, Dorian. If not for me, then for yourself. Don't you want to know who you really are?" My heart pounded like a war drum. Did I want to know? Or was ignorance safer? I opened my mouth to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. Then, from the doorway, a shadow shifted. Another voice, low and unfamiliar, broke the silence. "Maybe I can answer that for you." The voice froze me in place, colder than the draft whispering through the cracked windows. Caleb spun around, his face draining of color. A tall man stepped from the shadows, his presence filling the room like a storm. He looked mid-50s, rugged but well-kept, with piercing eyes that seemed to strip away every defense. My pulse hammered in my throat. "Who are you?" I demanded, though my voice cracked under the weight of fear. The man smiled faintly, but it wasn't warm, it was sharp, knowing. "My name isn't important yet," he said. His gaze shifted between Caleb and me like he was measuring us. "What matters is this. Your father wasn't who you thought he was. And neither of you truly knows the whole story." Caleb stiffened, his jaw tightening. "Stay out of this," he snapped. But the man ignored him, focusing squarely on me. "You deserve the truth, Dorian." My chest tightened as I took a step closer, needing answers yet terrified of them. "How do you know me? How do you know my father?" The stranger's eyes softened just slightly. "Because once upon a time, I was part of his world. Henry wasn't just an accountant. He had secrets, secrets that could ruin reputations, destroy families, topple everything you thought was safe." Caleb hissed, "He's lying. Don't listen." But the conviction in the stranger's voice struck deeper than Caleb's panic ever could. "Why now?" I asked. The man leaned against the desk, folding his arms. "Because the trust fund, the DNA test, all of it, it's not about money. It's about legitimacy. Someone doesn't want the truth to surface. And you, Dorian, are the key." My hands trembled as I whispered, "What truth?" He exhaled slowly, as if deciding how much I could handle. "That your family is built on a lie." Caleb's fist slammed against the desk, rattling the papers. "Enough," he roared. "You don't know what you're talking about." The stranger didn't flinch, only narrowed his eyes. "Oh, I know plenty. More than you want your brother to hear." Caleb turned to me, desperation bleeding through his arrogance. "He's trying to manipulate you, Dorian. Don't let him twist things. Dad raised us. That's what matters." I studied Caleb, his shaking hands betraying the fear in his voice. Then I looked at the man, calm, steady, like he had nothing to lose. My gut churned. "Why should I believe you?" I asked. The man leaned forward, his voice low but sharp. "Because I can prove it. I have evidence that your father was involved in things you couldn't imagine. And the DNA test Caleb wants? It's not about inheritance. It's about covering tracks." My heart pounded, torn between the devil I knew and the stranger who claimed truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. The stranger's words echoed, twisting with Caleb's desperation until my head spun. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of my father, his tired smile after long days, his rough laugh during fishing trips, the warmth of his arms when I scraped my knee. Could it all have been a performance? Or worse, was I holding on to a man who had hidden a darker life from me? I thought of Caleb's face, desperate, terrified, almost childlike when the stranger spoke. He wasn't faking that fear. And fear like that only comes from exposure, from the walls of a secret cracking open. My phone buzzed with a message from Caleb. "Don't trust him. Please. Meet me tomorrow. I'll explain everything." I stared at the screen, torn. Then another text came, this time from an unknown number. "If you want real answers, meet me at the docks. 10 p.m. The docks were an hour from Hartford, an old shipping yard that smelled of rust and seaweed. At 9:58 p.m., I parked near the edge of the pier, the water black under the moonlight. My breath puffed in the cool air, heart hammering as shadows loomed across abandoned warehouses. Then I saw him, the stranger from the office. He stood near a lamppost, hands tucked into his coat pockets, watching me with eyes that missed nothing. "You came," he said, his voice steady. I kept my distance. "Talk. No riddles this time." He nodded, pulling a folder from his coat. "Your father, Henry Hale, wasn't just managing money. He was laundering it, for powerful men, men who couldn't afford exposure. When he died, loose ends remained. And those loose ends involve both of you." My throat went dry. "Both." He nodded. "Because one of you isn't really his son, and the other isn't who they think they are." I shook my head, struggling to breathe. "That doesn't make sense." The stranger opened the folder, revealing photos, documents, letters with my father's handwriting. "It does, if you know where to look. Henry had a second life, another family, another child. That's why the trust fund was created. It wasn't just a gift. It was insurance, protection. But when Caleb stole your portion, he did more than rob you. He exposed all of you to the people Henry was hiding from." My skin crawled as I skimmed the photos. Dates, addresses, bank accounts offshore, letters signed with my father's name but written to someone I didn't know. My voice broke. Who was he protecting? Who's the other child? The stranger's eyes met mine, cold and certain. "That's what the DNA will reveal. And Caleb knows it. That's why he's desperate. Because if the truth comes out, he loses everything, including who he claims to be." The wind whipped across the dock, carrying the stink of salt and oil. My stomach churned as if the ground itself was unstable. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. The stranger's gaze hardened. "Because Henry owed me. He promised to make things right, and he died before he could. Now, the debt passes to you." I frowned. "What debt?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "You'll see soon enough. But you need to be careful. Caleb isn't your only problem. There are others watching, waiting. They know the test is coming. If you're not cautious, you'll end up like your father, buried with secrets no one dares speak." My chest tightened painfully, breath shallow. "So you're saying someone killed him?" The man's silence was answer enough. My knees wobbled as rage flared hot through my grief. My father hadn't just died. He'd been silenced. When I got home, my mind wouldn't stop spinning. I sat at the kitchen table with the folder spread before me, the documents blurring under my tears. Caleb's face flashed in my mind, his fear now making sense. If the DNA proved he wasn't truly Henry's son, his stolen empire would collapse. Every dollar he flaunted, every house, every car, it would all evaporate. And me? If I wasn't Henry's son either, what was left of my identity? Who was I without him? My phone buzzed again. This time it was Caleb. "I know what he told you. Please, meet me tomorrow morning. Dad's secrets are worse than you think. And if you believe him without hearing me, we'll both be destroyed." My hands shook as I typed back. "Then tell me everything. No more games." His reply came instantly. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m. at the church." The church stood tall against the pale dawn, its steeple piercing the sky like a warning finger. I arrived early, my stomach in knots, the folder clutched in my hands. Caleb pulled up minutes later, his suit wrinkled, his face gaunt, like he hadn't slept in days. He approached me slowly, his eyes darting around like he expected to be followed. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice hoarse. I crossed my arms. "Talk." He swallowed hard, glancing at the church doors. "Dad wasn't who you think he was. And if you trust that man from the docks, you'll regret it. He's not telling you the whole truth." I narrowed my eyes. "Then tell me what he left out." Caleb's lips trembled as he whispered, "Because the other child he mentioned, the one Dad was protecting, isn't a stranger. It's someone you already know." The words stuck in my ears like needles. Someone I already know. My breath caught as Caleb stepped closer, his hands shaking like leaves in the wind. We stood in the churchyard, the morning sun throwing long shadows across the cracked pavement. His eyes darted everywhere, paranoid and haunted. Dorian, you need to listen. Dad wasn't just protecting money. He was protecting a secret so explosive it could ruin more than us. My throat tightened. Say it. Who's the other child? Caleb's lips pressed together, trembling. Finally, he whispered, It's Eden. My knees nearly buckled. Eden Kane, my best friend since middle school, the one who'd sat with me through heartbreaks, job losses, every mess life threw at me. My voice cracked. That's impossible. Caleb shook his head, tears pooling. It's not. Eden is Dad's child. Our sibling. That's why the DNA matters. Because the test will expose everything. The church bells tolled, echoing through the empty streets, but I could barely hear them. My mind spun so violently I thought I might collapse. Eden. I whispered again, the name tasting foreign on my tongue. Caleb nodded furiously. That man you met at the docks, he didn't lie, not completely. But he didn't tell you the whole story. Eden's existence was Dad's deepest secret. Mom knew. That's why their marriage was always on the edge of collapse. My stomach twisted into knots, the world tilting. You're saying my best friend, my confidant, is actually my sibling? He wiped his face with trembling hands. Yes. And the people Dad was hiding from, they know about Eden. They want to make sure the truth never comes out. The sound of a car passing nearby jolted me, and suddenly, I felt like the entire world had become a stage for secrets I was never meant to uncover. I stumbled toward the church steps, needing to sit before my legs gave way. This doesn't make sense, I muttered, gripping the railing. If Eden's his child, why keep it hidden? Why create this trust fund for us? Caleb crouched in front of me, his eyes wide with desperation. Because Dad was living two lives. Eden's mom was part of something dangerous, something Dad got pulled into when he was laundering money. He set aside the trust to protect us in case it all went wrong. But he couldn't leave Eden out without drawing suspicion. So, he left clues, hoping one day we'd piece it together. My chest burned with betrayal. Eden had been in my life for years. Every birthday, every family barbecue, every late-night phone call. And all this time, we'd been bound by blood without knowing it. Does Eden know? I whispered. Caleb's silence was louder than any answer. His avoidance told me everything. The door to the church creaked open suddenly, and I jerked my head up. Father Raymond stepped out, his kind face lined with confusion. Dorian, Caleb, what on earth are you two doing out here this early? Caleb sprang up, his nerves snapping like brittle glass. Nothing, Father. Just talking. Father Raymond studied us, his sharp eyes catching the tension neither of us could hide. Well, take your talking inside. God's house is better than the streets for troubled hearts. He retreated back in, leaving the door ajar. Caleb turned to me, voice urgent. We can't tell Eden yet. If they find out before we know exactly who's pulling the strings, Eden could be in danger. My heart hammered. How was I supposed to face Eden now? My best friend, my sibling? The weight of it pressed down like lead, suffocating me. And beneath it all, one question gnawed relentlessly. Who else knows? Later that day, I drove to Eden's apartment in downtown New Haven, the entire ride a blur of stoplights and honking horns. My hands clutched the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. When Eden opened the door, all the breath left my lungs. Same warm smile, same easy energy that had always been my anchor. Dorian, what are you doing here? Eden asked, pulling me inside. Their apartment smelled faintly of coffee and old books, sunlight streaming through sheer curtains. I tried to smile, but it wobbled. Just needed to see you. We sat on the couch, and Eden launched into a story about their latest art commission, laughing, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I stared at them, every detail suddenly sharper, the familiar curve of their jaw, the flecks of gold in their brown eyes. How had I never seen it before? They looked like Dad. They were Dad. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the moment. I glanced down. A text from Caleb. Do not say anything. Not yet. Trust me. My fingers tightened around the phone, rage simmering beneath my ribs. Caleb still thought he could control the narrative. But sitting here with Eden, I realized silence was its own kind of cruelty. They deserved the truth. Yet every time I opened my mouth, my voice died in my throat. Eden noticed my distraction. "You okay, Dorian? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a laugh, the sound hollow. "Just tired." Eden's hand landed gently on my shoulder, grounding me. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" I nearly broke then, nearly blurted it all out. The DNA, the trust, the betrayal. But the weight of Caleb's warning pressed against me. If Eden was in danger, blurting the truth could make me their executioner. That night, I couldn't eat. I sat at my kitchen table again, staring at the folder the stranger had given me. I flipped through the papers until I found it, a birth certificate. Eden's birth certificate. My stomach lurched as I read Henry Hale's name under father. Proof. Cold, damning proof. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the page. Everything Caleb said was true. Dad had lived a double life, and Eden was the product of it. I felt sick. All those years of trust, laughter, secrets shared in dimly lit rooms, it was all built on a foundation of lies. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Time is running out. Tomorrow, you'll have to choose. Your brother, your friend, or the truth. You can't have all three." My blood ran cold as I realized someone was watching me, and they knew everything. Sleep never came. By morning, I looked like a ghost in the mirror, my eyes red, my skin pale. I splashed water on my face, but it didn't wash away the dread. Caleb called, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to meet again. Things are getting worse." I snapped. "Why didn't you tell me about Eden sooner?" His silence was answer enough. "You've been protecting yourself, not me. You stole that money, you dragged me into this mess, and now you want me to keep your secrets? No, Caleb. Not anymore." He begged, voice breaking. "If you walk away now, they'll come for all of us. You think you're safe, but you're not. They'll use Eden to get to you." My chest constricted as I thought of Eden's laugh, their kindness. The idea of anyone hurting them ignited a fire in me I didn't know I had. That evening, I drove to the church again, needing clarity, needing peace. The pews were empty, sunlight filtering through stained glass, painting me in shards of red and blue. I dropped to my knees, whispering a prayer I wasn't sure anyone was listening to. "God, what am I supposed to do?" My words echoed off the high ceilings, empty and small. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind me. I turned, expecting Father Raymond. But it wasn't him. It was the stranger from the docks. He stood at the end of the aisle, his eyes burning with intensity. "You've seen the papers," he said softly. I swallowed hard. "It's true, isn't it? Eden's my father's child." He nodded once. "Yes. And now you understand why they can't find out." "Not yet." I stood slowly, fists clenched. "Then tell me who they are." His lips curved into a grim smile. "You already know them, Dorian. More than you realize." The church air grew heavier with every second, thick with incense and unspoken dread. I gripped the back of the pew, my knuckles whitening, as the stranger's words echoed inside me. "You already know them." My voice cracked as I demanded, "Who?" He stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking against the stone floor, his presence more menacing than his soft tone. "They're not outsiders, Dorian. The ones threatening you are family." My chest constricted, my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. "Family." He nodded, lips curling into something between pity and disgust. "The Hales have been playing games for decades. Your father wasn't the first to hide things. And Caleb wasn't the first to betray." The walls felt like they were closing in. I staggered back, shaking my head. "You're lying." But deep down, a small voice whispered that it made sense. Every rift, every secret, it had always been blood that poisoned us. I followed him out into the fading evening light, my mind a storm of denial and fear. Cars sped past the church, their headlights streaking across his face as he spoke again. "Think back, Dorian. Every time you thought you could trust one of them, didn't they let you down?" I flinched at the memories. Caleb stealing the fund, Dad keeping Eden a secret, Mom turning a blind eye to everything. He wasn't wrong. Why are you telling me this? I snapped, my patience unraveling. He studied me, his eyes sharp. Because you'll need to decide where your loyalty lies when the truth comes out. And trust me, it will. He handed me a small envelope. My fingers trembled as I opened it, revealing photographs. My blood froze. Caleb, standing with two of my uncles, in what looked like a bank vault. Bags of cash, documents, signatures. Caleb wasn't acting alone. I shoved the photos back, anger boiling in my veins. You set this up, I spat. The stranger shook his head calmly. No, Dorian. I just documented it. Caleb has been working with them for months. They all want the same thing, to control the trust, to control you, and to bury the secret about Eden. I wanted to scream. The air tasted of betrayal, sour and suffocating. And you? What's your part in this? He sighed, lowering his voice. My part is making sure Henry Hale's mistakes don't cost more lives. The way he said my father's name sent a chill down my spine. He knew too much, far more than he was letting on. Before I could press further, he slipped into the shadows, vanishing into the night, leaving me clutching the damning envelope. I stood there, breathless and alone, the world tilting beneath me. Family. The very word suddenly felt like a curse. Driving home, I couldn't stop replaying the photos in my head. Caleb, laughing with our uncles, greed dripping from their faces. How long had they been plotting behind my back? My chest ached as I gripped the wheel, headlights blurring into streaks of white. Every time I thought I'd hit the bottom, another layer of betrayal cracked open beneath me. When I pulled into my driveway, I spotted a shadow on my porch. My heart leapt into my throat until I recognized Eden, sitting with their head in their hands. Dorian, they said softly when I approached, their eyes red from crying. Something's wrong. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm being watched. My stomach dropped. I wanted to tell them everything right then, about Dad, the trust, the danger. But the weight of the truth threatened to crush both of us. I simply said, "You're not wrong." Eden frowned, pulling their jacket tighter around them. "You know something, don't you? I can see it all over your face. Please, don't shut me out." My chest tightened. 4 years, I'd promised Eden honesty, that they could trust me above all else. But now, every word was a minefield. If I told them too soon, I'd be putting a target on their back. "It's complicated," I whispered. Eden reached for my hand, their grip warm but desperate. "Then uncomplicate it. I need to know what's happening, Dorian. Why is Caleb suddenly calling me? Why did he say I should stay away from you?" My breath hitched. Caleb had already started weaving his web, twisting truths before I could. Fury flared in me, but I swallowed it down. "Stay close to me," I said firmly. "Whatever you do, don't believe a word Caleb says. He's not who you think he is." That night, I barely slept, pacing my living room with the envelope in hand. The photographs were proof Caleb wasn't just greedy, he was conspiring with the rest of the family. I thought about confronting him, about showing him I knew. But then I thought about Eden, fragile and unknowing, caught in the crossfire of secrets they never asked for. My phone rang at 3 a.m., jolting me. Caleb's voice came through, panicked. "Dorian, listen, whatever you do, don't meet with Uncle Charles tomorrow. He'll try to manipulate you." I froze, bile rising in my throat. "How do you know what I'm planning?" Silence stretched, then Caleb muttered, "Because I was there. I've been there all along. But I didn't know it would go this far." My grip tightened on the phone. "You knew enough." His silence was an admission, and my fury burned brighter than ever. By morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I drove to Uncle Charles's estate, a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of town, its iron gates looming like prison bars. The guard recognized me instantly and let me in, though his stare lingered too long, like he already knew why I was there. Charles greeted me in his study, glass of whiskey in hand, the fire casting shadows across his face. "Dorian," he drawled, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" I dropped the envelope on his desk, the photos spilling out. His eyes flickered, just for a moment, before he smirked. So, you've seen the truth. My jaw clenched. The truth? You mean betrayal? My brother? My uncles? All of you? He leaned back casually, as though we were discussing the weather. Betrayal is a harsh word. Business, however, that's eternal. His calmness made my skin crawl. He wasn't even pretending to deny it. What do you want from me? I demanded, my voice raw. Charles swirled his whiskey, eyes gleaming. Simple. Step aside. Let Caleb manage the trust, and you'll never have to worry about a thing again. Rage exploded in my chest. You're asking me to hand over everything Dad built? Everything he wanted to protect us from? Charles chuckled darkly. Protect you? Dorian, your father wasn't a saint. He was a criminal with a guilty conscience. That fund isn't safety, it's leverage. And we intend to use it. My stomach turned. Use it for what? His smile widened, cruel and knowing. To keep Eden where they belong, quiet, forgotten, erased. I froze, the blood draining from my face. He knew. He knew about Eden. My hands shook, but my voice came out steady. If you touch Eden, I swear. He cut me off, raising his glass. Or what? You'll fight family. I stormed out, my pulse roaring in my ears, Charles's words chasing me like shadows. Erase Eden. The phrase wouldn't stop repeating in my mind. By the time I reached my car, my vision blurred with rage. Caleb was waiting near the gate, his face pale. I told you not to come here, he hissed. I shoved him against the fence, fury ripping through me. You knew. You knew they were going after Eden. Caleb shook his head wildly, eyes wide with terror. No, I didn't. I swear, I didn't know they'd drag Eden into this. I thought it was just about the money. I wanted to believe him, but the photos burned in my pocket like fire. You're either lying or stupid, I spat. Caleb grabbed my arm, desperation in his grip. Please, Dorian. We don't have much time. They're planning something tomorrow night. If we don't stop them, Eden won't make it out. Caleb's words rattled through me like broken glass. Tomorrow night. Eden won't make it out. My throat tightened, the night air pressing down like a weight. I wanted to shove him away, to scream that this was his fault, but fear gnawed at my rage. What are they planning? I demanded, my voice shaking. Caleb's eyes darted around, paranoid, like shadows were listening. Charles is hosting a family dinner. But it's a trap, Dorian. They'll corner you, force you to sign papers, and Eden. He trailed off, swallowing hard. They want to use Eden as leverage. My stomach dropped. I felt dizzy, gripping the cold fence to stay upright. Why tell me this now? Caleb's lips trembled. Because I didn't think they'd go this far. I thought it was about money, not blood. My jaw clenched. For once, I couldn't read him. Was he warning me, or luring me straight into hell? I dragged him toward my car, fury and desperation surging together. Get in. No. Caleb hesitated, then obeyed, sliding into the passenger seat. The drive was silent, tension thick enough to choke us both. My mind raced. A family dinner. That was their excuse to gather everyone, to make sure I couldn't run. But why Eden? Why drag someone innocent into this war? My hands gripped the wheel tighter. I remembered Eden's fragile voice the night before, confessing they felt watched. They'd been marked all along. Rage boiled in my chest. Caleb finally spoke, his tone trembling. You don't trust me, do you? I shot him a glare sharp enough to cut steel. You stole $6 million and lied for months. What do you think? He flinched, staring down at his hands. I just wanted out. I didn't know how deep this ran. His voice cracked. But Dorian, I think Dad did. The car skidded slightly as I slammed on the brakes, my pulse pounding in my ears. What do you mean? Caleb's face paled under the dashboard light. Dad wasn't just hiding Eden. He was hiding us. The trust fund wasn't just money, it was a shield. A shield against the rest of the family. My chest felt like it might split open. Memories of Dad, always stern, always secretive, crashed over me. You're saying he knew? Caleb nodded slowly. He knew they'd come for it. And he knew they'd come for us. The words burrowed into me like venom. Suddenly, everything made sense. The encrypted letters, the hidden accounts, the paranoia. Dad hadn't been crazy. He'd been preparing us for war. And now, with him gone, the shield was crumbling. I hit the gas again, heart racing. If that's true, I whispered, then we're already in deeper than we realize. Caleb's silence was confirmation enough. Back home, Eden was pacing the living room, their face pale with worry. The moment they saw Caleb, their expression hardened. Why is he here? I raised a hand. It's complicated. Caleb tried to speak, but Eden cut him off, voice trembling with anger. You stole from us. From Dorian. And now you show up like some victim. Caleb winced, guilt shadowing his face. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But Eden, you're in danger too. They're not just after money anymore. Eden froze, their eyes flicking to me for answers. I nodded grimly. He's right. Tomorrow night, Charles is planning something. And it's not good. Eden sank onto the couch, covering their face with their hands. This is insane. We're family. Families don't. Their voice cracked. Don't do this to each other. I wanted to agree, to reassure them. But the truth weighed too heavy. Ours does. We sat in tense silence, the clock ticking louder than my heartbeat. Finally, Eden lifted their head, eyes shimmering with fear. So, what do we do? My throat went dry. What could we do against men with money, power, and years of scheming? Caleb leaned forward, urgency in his voice. We can't fight them head-on. We need leverage. Proof that they're breaking the law, that they've already stolen from the trust. I narrowed my eyes. And let me guess, you know where to find it? He hesitated, then nodded. Dad's old storage unit. He kept copies of everything. Documents, ledgers, recordings. I didn't understand at the time, but now, it all makes sense. My mind spun. If Dad really had evidence, it could flip the board. But going after it meant walking right into another trap. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling Dad had left it behind for this exact moment. At dawn, we drove to the storage facility on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled like rust and secrets. The manager gave me a knowing look when I handed over the key Dad had hidden in his desk years ago. Haven't seen anyone open this one in a long time, he muttered. My chest tightened as the lock clicked open. The unit smelled faintly of tobacco and old paper, Dad scent lingering like a ghost. Boxes stacked to the ceiling lined the walls, each labeled in Dad's precise handwriting. Caleb and I tore through them, Eden hovering anxiously near the door. After an hour, Caleb pulled out a metal tin, its lid rusted but secure. Inside were cassette tapes, bank receipts, and folders thick with legal documents. My hands shook as I flipped through one. It was a signed agreement between Charles and a foreign shell company, illegal transfers. Proof. Before relief could settle, Eden gasped. Someone's coming. My head whipped toward the doorway. Shadows moved beyond the metal slats, slow and deliberate. Caleb cursed under his breath, shoving the tin back into the box. We're out of time. I grabbed Eden's hand, yanking them deeper into the unit. The lock rattled. Voices murmured outside. Charles's voice cut through, cold and mocking. Dorian, I know you're in there. Be smart and hand over what doesn't belong to you. My blood ran cold. He'd known we'd come here. Of course he had. Dad's storage unit wasn't a secret, it was bait. Caleb's face went pale. He set us up. Panic clawed at my chest. If we stayed, we'd be cornered. If we ran, we'd have to fight our way past them. Either way, we were trapped. Eden's hand tightened around mine. What do we do? They whispered. I had no answer. The door rattled harder, metal groaning under the pressure. Dorian! Charles barked. Last chance. Hand it over, and no one gets hurt. His words dripped with venom, the kind that promised nothing but blood. Caleb's eyes darted around desperately, landing on a back vent half hidden by boxes. There, he hissed. Together, we shoved crates aside, the sound echoing like thunder. Eden crawled through first, their frame just small enough to fit. I shoved the tin into their hands. "Go. Don't stop. No matter what." Their eyes widened with terror. "But what about you?" My chest burned with the weight of the choice. "I'll buy you time." Caleb grabbed my arm, panic in his grip. "No, we stick together. Splitting up is suicide." The door began to bend inward, metal screeching. My heart pounded in my ears. Family was tearing itself apart outside, and inside, I had seconds to decide everything. The vent clanged shut behind Eden, their frightened face burned into my memory. Caleb and I stood side by side, hearts pounding, as the door finally gave way. Charles stepped inside, flanked by two of our uncles, smug satisfaction painted across his face. "Well, well," he sneered. "Like father, like son. Always hoarding secrets." My fists clenched around nothing, wishing I had a weapon. Caleb shifted beside me, whispering under his breath, "Don't let them take us alive." My blood chilled at his words, but in his eyes I saw the same fire that had once burned in Dad's. Maybe, just maybe, Caleb was finally ready to fight for something bigger than himself. Charles took a step closer, his shadow swallowing the light. "Where's Eden?" he demanded. My breath caught. If I told the truth, Eden was finished. If I lied, they'd tear me apart to find them. Charles's eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows of the storage unit as if Eden's presence lingered in the air. "Where's your little friend?" His voice was calm, too calm, the kind that hid a blade behind its smile. I forced my breathing steady, planting myself between him and the vent. "Not here," I said flatly. "You'll only find me." My lie felt brittle, but I held his gaze, refusing to flinch. Charles smirked, tilting his head at one of our uncles. The man stepped forward, his fists curling like iron. Caleb stiffened beside me, shoulders squared in a rare display of loyalty. For the first time in years, we were united, not by trust, but by survival. The door groaned behind them, closing us in like a coffin. My pulse roared in my ears. Dad's warnings echoed in my mind. "They'll strip everything if you let them. Don't let them win." Charles advanced slowly, his shoes scraping against concrete. "Do you even know what you're guarding, Dorian?" His tone was mocking, but edged with curiosity. I didn't answer. The tin was already gone with Eden, and I prayed they were running far, far from here. Caleb stepped forward unexpectedly, blocking Charles's path. "We're not afraid of you anymore," he spat. My jaw nearly dropped. Caleb, who had stolen, lied, and betrayed, now stood like a shield. Charles chuckled darkly, leaning close to him. "Not afraid. You should be terrified. Your father thought his little safety net would save you, but it won't. Blood always pays." The uncle lunged suddenly, swinging for Caleb. Instinct roared through me. I grabbed a metal rod from a broken shelf and intercepted the blow with a deafening clang. Sparks flew in my skull as adrenaline surged. My hands shook, but I lifted the rod again. "Stay back." The room exploded into chaos. My uncle swung wildly, his massive arms aiming for my throat. I ducked, the rod clanging against his forearm. Caleb shoved Charles back, sending him stumbling into a pile of boxes. Dust filled the air, choking us as fists collided with flesh. Pain shot through my ribs as a punch landed hard, knocking me sideways. My vision blurred, but I tightened my grip on the rod and swung with every ounce of fury in me. It connected with bone, sharp, brutal. My uncle howled, collapsing to one knee. Caleb wrestled with Charles, their grunts echoing off the walls. For a moment, I saw the boy he used to be, the brother who'd shielded me from bullies, who'd once sworn he'd never let anyone hurt me. The illusion flickered, but it was enough to fuel me. I slammed my shoulder into the second uncle as he lunged, sending him crashing into the metal shelves with a sickening clang. But Charles was relentless. He twisted Caleb's arm, slamming him into the wall. Caleb cried out, the sound ripping through me. Charles's eyes met mine, burning with fury. "You think you can stop me with scraps of metal? You're children playing war." His hand reached for his coat, and I saw the glint before he even pulled it free. A gun. My chest locked in terror. Caleb thrashed desperately, trying to break free, but Charles pressed the weapon against his temple. "One more move, and I paint the walls with him," he hissed. My rod clattered to the floor. My body went numb, my knees weak. "Stop!" I shouted, voice raw. Charles smiled cruelly. "That's better." The uncles regrouped behind him, battered but smirking. "Now," Charles said smoothly, "tell me where Eden is. You have 3 seconds. 1. My chest tightened, a scream clawing its way up my throat. Caleb's eyes locked with mine, wild and pleading. "Don't," he whispered. "Don't tell him." My mind spiraled. Eden was my responsibility, my blood. But Caleb was my brother, flawed, broken, guilty, yet still tethered to me by something I couldn't cut away. Charles raised his voice. 2. My thoughts raced. Dad's tin was gone, Eden was safe for now, but if I lied, Charles might kill Caleb here, in front of me. If I told the truth, Eden would be hunted like prey. My heart hammered so hard it felt like it might burst. Caleb's voice broke. "Dorian, please, let me go." His words cracked something deep inside me. The metal walls seemed to close in, suffocating me. Charles's finger tightened on the trigger, the gleam in his eyes colder than ice. 3. Silence stretched, fragile as glass, and I felt the world teeter on the edge of shattering. In that split second, I made my choice. My hand darted to the floor, snatching up the rod. With a primal scream, I hurled it straight at Charles. The weapon clanged against his wrist, the gun firing wildly as it flew from his grip. The deafening shot ricocheted through the storage unit, sparks flying as the bullet embedded into metal. Caleb lunged forward, slamming his shoulder into Charles's chest. They both crashed to the ground, struggling violently. My blood roared, adrenaline numbing the ache in my body. The uncles charged again, fury blazing in their eyes. I met them head-on, desperation fueling my strength. My fists became weapons, my body a shield. Every blow, every strike, was survival. The sound of bone cracking under my knuckles was sickening, but I didn't stop. Not now. Not with everything on the line. For once, fear didn't own me. Rage did, and it was stronger. Charles recovered quickly, his face twisted with rage as he kicked Caleb aside. Blood trickled from his lip, but his voice was steady, venomous. "You think this changes anything? You think a few bruises stop me?" He lunged for the gun again, his fingers brushing the metal. I dove, slamming into him with everything I had. The gun skittered across the floor, sliding beneath a stack of boxes. Caleb staggered to his feet, clutching his ribs but standing beside me once more. "Enough!" I roared, my voice breaking. "This ends tonight." Charles laughed, low and cruel, his teeth glinting in the dim light. "You sound just like your father. And we both know how that ended." The words stabbed into me, but instead of breaking me, they hardened my resolve. Then maybe it's time I finish what he started. The air crackled with tension. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was war. The uncles hesitated, glancing nervously at each other. For the first time, doubt flickered in their eyes. Charles saw it too, and fury twisted his face. "Cowards!" he spat. "You'd betray blood for him?" The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Then, without warning, one uncle stepped back, shaking his head. "This has gone too far, Charles. I didn't sign up for murder." My heart jolted. The other uncle faltered, torn between loyalty and fear. Charles's fury erupted. "Fine," he snarled. "I'll do it myself." He lunged toward the boxes where the gun had vanished, but Caleb tackled him, both of them crashing to the ground in a violent struggle. I dove too, crawling desperately under the boxes, my hands searching the dark floor. My fingers brushed cold steel. The gun. My chest seized as I gripped it. My reflection glinted back in the barrel, and my heart froze. I rose to my feet, the gun shaking in my hands. Charles froze mid-struggle, Caleb pinning his arms. For the first time, fear flickered across his face. "You won't," he hissed. "You're too much like him. Weak." My grip tightened, the weight of the weapon suffocating me. Memories of Dad's stern eyes, of whispered warnings about family, surged like fire in my veins. Caleb's eyes found mine, raw and desperate. "Dorian, do it." My finger trembled on the trigger, my mind warring with itself. The smell of blood, dust, and sweat clung to the air, pressing down like judgment. Charles smirked again, though his voice wavered. "Pull it, and you'll be just like me." The gun's safety clicked under my thumb, the sound slicing through the silence. My pulse thundered in my ears. The choice was mine: blood, revenge, survival. My lips parted, breath shallow, as the world seemed to hold its breath. The gun shook in my hands, the metal heavy, almost alive. My finger hovered on the trigger, but the weight of what it meant pressed harder than gravity itself. Charles lay pinned beneath Caleb, his smirk curling into a poisonous sneer. "You don't have it in you," he whispered, daring me. The words stabbed like needles, echoing the same ridicule Dad used to hear before he collapsed into the grave Charles had dug for him. My vision blurred with rage, grief, and something darker: temptation. For a heartbeat, I saw Dad's face instead of Charles's, heard his voice telling me, "Sometimes mercy is just another word for weakness." My hand tightened. Caleb's voice cracked like a whip through the storm. "Dorian, listen to me. It's now or never. Do it." My heart twisted. Brother against brother, father's ghost against my trembling soul. My finger pressed down, and the world held its breath. The gun roared, a thunderclap in the small unit, deafening and final. My eyes snapped shut, bracing for the end. But when I opened them, Charles wasn't dead. The bullet had buried itself into the concrete inches from his head, shards of dust raining over him. His smirk widened, cruel and mocking. "Weak," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. My knees buckled. Caleb slammed Charles's face into the ground, shouting, "He spared you, and you still dare!" But I barely heard. My chest heaved, my stomach twisted in knots. I had aimed to kill, but my hand betrayed me. My soul recoiled at the sight of blood, the finality of death. Caleb stared at me, eyes blazing. "Why didn't you finish it?" he roared. I couldn't answer. My silence was its own confession. In that hesitation, Charles twisted violently, breaking free from Caleb's grip. Rage boiled over his face as he lunged. The storage unit erupted again in chaos. Charles's fist smashed against Caleb's jaw, sending him sprawling. I scrambled backward, the gun slipping from my shaking hands. Charles dove for it, but I kicked hard, sending the weapon skittering across the floor again. Dust clouded the air as we all scrambled, bodies colliding in a frantic, desperate ballet. My lungs burned, my knuckles split, my heart screaming louder than the chaos itself. Caleb swung wildly, tackling Charles into a stack of boxes that crashed down around them. For a moment, the noise swallowed everything, the thuds of fists, the crunch of bone, the shriek of collapsing metal. But then, silence pierced through it, the sound of boots retreating. My eyes darted up. One uncle had already fled, his loyalty shattered. The second hovered near the exit, torn by indecision. "You're both insane," he muttered, and then he bolted too. For the first time, Charles was truly alone. But he didn't falter. If anything, he grew more feral, his eyes glinting like a cornered animal. "Family," he spat, his voice hoarse with hatred. "You think blood means loyalty? Blood means power. And I'll have it, even if I drown you both in it." He lunged at me this time, faster than I expected. His hands clamped around my throat, squeezing until stars burst behind my eyes. My knees buckled as I clawed at his grip, air deserting me with each passing second. Caleb staggered up, blood dripping from his lip, and launched himself at Charles again. They tumbled to the floor, the chokehold breaking. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, my lungs clawing for air. The gun lay glinting just beyond reach. My vision tunneled. The decision I couldn't make before circled back like a vulture. The weight of survival pressed down again. This time, hesitation would kill me. I crawled toward the weapon, each movement sluggish, as if the air itself resisted me. Charles and Caleb wrestled, their grunts echoing through the concrete tomb. My fingers brushed the cold steel. This time, I didn't tremble. Rage steadied me, grief hardened me. I gripped the gun, rising slowly. Charles pinned Caleb to the floor, his fists raining down mercilessly. Caleb's eyes rolled back, his body going limp under the blows. My chest ached, panic slicing me open. "Stop!" I screamed, but Charles didn't hear. Or maybe he did, and he didn't care. My hands lifted the gun, the barrel aimed steady this time. My finger rested on the trigger, the choice burning hotter than fire. A flash of memory seized me: Dad's funeral, Caleb's betrayal, the will that started it all. My life, twisted by their greed. My lips parted, the words trembling out. "You took everything from me." "Not anymore." Charles froze, his fists halting midair. His head turned slowly, his eyes locking onto mine. He saw it then, the resolve, the fire that hadn't been there before. For the first time, fear flickered across his face. "You won't," he hissed again, but his voice lacked the venom. It shook, just slightly, enough to betray him. Caleb coughed weakly beneath him, blood pooling at the corner of his mouth. My finger pressed harder, the barrel steady. The silence stretched thin, snapping under the weight of every heartbeat. "Try me," I whispered. Charles sneered, but his eyes darted toward the door. His body shifted, not forward, but back. He shoved Caleb aside and stumbled to his feet, retreating toward the shadows. "This isn't over," he spat, his voice breaking into a rasp. My hand trembled, but I didn't lower the gun. I followed his every move, ready to end him if he lunged. He slipped out the door, his figure swallowed by the night. The silence he left behind was louder than the chaos. I collapsed, the gun clattering from my hands. My whole body trembled, every nerve screaming. Caleb groaned beside me, barely conscious. Blood streaked his face, but his eyes fluttered open, focusing on me. "You should have killed him," he rasped. My stomach twisted. Maybe he was right. Maybe mercy had only bought us more pain. But I couldn't shake the image of Dad's eyes, stern and unyielding, warning me of what killing would cost. I dragged myself to Caleb's side, lifting him gently. His weight sagged heavily against me. "We're not done," I whispered. "Not until every lie, every theft, is exposed." My words felt like a vow, heavy and binding. Caleb nodded weakly, his breath shallow. But even in his broken state, a flicker of something strange passed his face. Fear. I pulled him to his feet, supporting his battered frame as we stumbled out into the cool night air. The stars seemed cruelly bright, the world too calm for the storm that had raged inside. My heart still hammered, my hands raw and bloody. Every step felt like walking on broken glass, but we kept moving. The parking lot stretched empty, save for our battered car. I shoved Caleb inside, sliding behind the wheel. The engine roared weakly to life, the headlights cutting through the dark. But as we drove, my mind spun faster than the tires. Charles wasn't gone. He was regrouping, planning, hungering for revenge. And if what Dad had hidden in that tin was as powerful as it seemed, then Charles wasn't just after money. He was after control, domination, destruction. My chest tightened. "We need Eden," I muttered. Caleb turned his head slowly, his expression unreadable. "About that." His voice cracked, low and hesitant. My stomach sank. Caleb's silence stretched like a blade, cutting into me with every second. Finally he spoke, his words thick with dread. "I lied. Dorian. Eden, she's not safe." My grip on the wheel tightened until my knuckles went white. "What do you mean, not safe?" I snapped. Caleb coughed, wincing with pain. "Charles isn't chasing her. He already found her." My heart lurched violently, the road ahead blurring. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "That's impossible. She had the tin. She was supposed to be—" Caleb's eyes closed, his voice barely audible. "He took her. Tonight. While we were here." The car swerved as my vision tunneled, my chest seizing in agony. Eden. Gone. Taken. My little sister, my only hope, in Charles's hands. Rage and terror swallowed me whole. My foot slammed on the gas, the car roaring forward into the night. The night swallowed the car as I slammed my foot on the gas, my heart pounding so loud it drowned the engine's roar. Caleb slumped beside me, his breath shallow, his face pale under the flickering dashboard light. His words repeated in my head like a curse. Charles already found Eden. My little sister, The only person who had looked at me without judgment, the only anchor left in this hurricane of betrayal, now she was in his grip. The thought made bile rise in my throat. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the leather cutting into my palms. "Where is he taking her?" I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. Caleb coughed, blood staining his lip, before whispering, "The lake house." My stomach clenched. Of course. Dad's old retreat, hidden among the pines, where secrets had always been buried. My chest tightened. I had hours, maybe less, to get to her. The road ahead blurred, headlights slicing through the night as I pushed the car faster. My mind spun, memories crashing into me. I remembered Eden as a little girl, tugging at my sleeve, her laughter ringing through the lake house halls. She had been the light in the shadows of our broken family. Now Charles wanted to snuff that light out, to bend her to his greed. My jaw clenched. Over my dead body. Caleb stirred beside me, groaning. "You have to be careful," he rasped. "Charles, he's not alone." I shot him a sharp glance. "What do you mean?" He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. "He hired people. Dangerous ones. You walk in there without a plan, you'll both end up dead." His words sliced through my fury, forcing me to slow down, just a little. I hated that he was right. This wasn't just a rescue. It was war. The lake house appeared in my mind's eye before I even saw it. Tall pines casting shadows, the dark water stretching endless behind it, windows glowing faintly in the night. A place that had once felt safe, now poisoned by Charles's presence. I gritted my teeth. "Then we'll fight smart," I muttered. Caleb winced as he sat up straighter. "There's a back entrance," he whispered, pointing weakly at the map on the dash. "Dad used to keep tools there. Weapons, too. If he hasn't found them yet." His voice trailed off, too weak to finish. My stomach churned. Trusting Caleb still felt like handling fire, but right now, I didn't have a choice. Every second we wasted was another second Eden was trapped with Charles. My hands shook, but not from fear. This was rage burning hot, turning my body into something unrecognizable. Tonight, I wasn't just fighting for money or revenge. I was fighting for blood. When we finally pulled onto the dirt road leading to the lake house, the forest closed in around us, thick and suffocating. The air reeked of pine and damp earth, but beneath it was something sharper, smoke. My stomach dropped. Charles was already making his mark here, torching what Dad had built. The glow of headlights flashed ahead, parked vehicles lining the property. He hadn't come alone. I killed the engine, the silence pressing heavy. Caleb groaned, clutching his ribs, but his eyes locked on mine. "You can't do this alone," he said hoarsely. "You'll die." I shook my head. "Then I die fighting. But I'm not leaving her." I slipped out of the car, the cool night air hitting my skin like ice. Every shadow moved. Every sound threatened. I crouched low, my eyes darting across the property. The war had already begun, and I was stepping straight into its fire. Moving through the trees, my breath shallow, I spotted the back of the lake house. The memories clawed at me. Summer cookouts, Eden's laughter, Dad's voice echoing off the porch. Now it was all tainted. I spotted 2 guards by the rear door, their silhouettes sharp under the porch light. My pulse quickened. 2 men between me and Eden. Caleb had been right. This wasn't Charles alone. My hand closed around the tire iron I'd pulled from the trunk. It wasn't much, but it was something. I crouched low, watching their movements. They were bored, distracted, one lighting a cigarette, the other scrolling his phone. My chest heaved. I had one shot. I surged forward, swinging hard. The first guard dropped before he even knew I was there. The second swung wildly, but I drove the iron into his gut, his breath exploding out. He crumpled. Silence fell again. I slipped inside the house, the floorboards groaning beneath me. The familiar walls pressed close, whispering of secrets. The smell of smoke lingered stronger here, mixed with a faint tang of blood. My stomach twisted. "Eden," I whispered, though I knew she couldn't hear me. Every creak echoed like thunder as I crept deeper inside. My eyes adjusted to the dim light. Boxes scattered, furniture overturned, signs of a struggle. My fists clenched. Then I heard it, Muffled sobs, faint but piercing. My heart lurched. Eden. I followed the sound, each step fueled by desperation. I rounded a corner, and there she was. Her hands bound, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes, oh God, her eyes, lit up when they saw me. "Dorian," she gasped. Relief surged through me like fire. But before I could move, another sound froze me, slow clapping. Charles stepped out of the shadows, smiling. "Well, well," he sneered, his voice slicing through the air. "The hero arrives." His smirk widened as he looked between Eden and me. Touching reunion. Shame it won't last. My blood boiled. "Let her go, Charles," I growled, my grip tightening on the tire iron. He chuckled, shaking his head. "Always so dramatic. Do you even know what's at stake? That tin wasn't just money, Dorian. It was power. Dad's empire, the kind of control you can't even imagine. And Eden." His eyes darkened as they shifted to her. "She's the key." My stomach dropped. Eden whimpered, shaking her head. "Don't listen to him, Dorian." But Charles's words gnawed at me. Power. Control. Dad's empire. The puzzle pieces shifted, forming a darker picture. My voice cracked as I asked, "What did you do, Charles?" He smirked wider. "What Dad started. What you were too weak to finish." Before I could respond, two more men emerged from the shadows, blocking the doorway behind me. My chest tightened. Trapped. Charles stepped closer, his eyes gleaming. "You had your chance, Dorian. You could have killed me back in that unit, but you didn't. And now, I'll take everything." His hand reached into his coat, pulling out something small and metallic. My breath caught. It wasn't a weapon. It was a vial. The liquid inside shimmered faintly under the dim light. Charles's grin widened. "Dad left us more than money. He left us this. A legacy." He held it up like a trophy, his eyes burning with mania. "And tonight, I'll seal it. With Eden." My pulse raced, fury and terror battling inside me. Caleb's warning echoed in my mind. This wasn't just about wealth. It was something far more dangerous. My grip tightened. Whatever that vial was, Charles couldn't have it. Eden's muffled sobs cut through my haze, pulling me back to the only truth that mattered. She was here, she was in danger, and I had to save her. My body trembled, torn between rage and fear. Charles tilted his head, watching me like a predator. "So, what will it be, brother? Do you walk away, or do you die trying to be a hero?" The room spun, the walls closing in. My every instinct screamed to charge, to fight, to end this once and for all. But the men blocking the exit shifted, their hands brushing weapons at their belts. The odds were impossible. My chest heaved. I looked at Eden, her eyes wide with terror but blazing with trust. She believed in me. She always had. I couldn't fail her. Not now. I took one step forward, raising the iron, ready to meet hell head-on. Charles's smirk deepened, his hand tightening around the vial. "Then let's end this." The men behind me moved closer, shadows closing in. My grip steadied, my breath slowing as adrenaline surged. Every nerve screamed, every memory burned. Dad's voice echoed in my head, Caleb's warning, Eden's cry, all blending into one relentless drumbeat. Fight. I lunged forward, the room exploding in chaos. Shouts, movement, the glint of steel. But before I could land a blow, Charles yanked Eden up, pressing the vial against her skin. "One more step," he hissed, "and she pays the price." My heart stopped. Eden gasped, her wide eyes begging me. I froze, torn between rage and terror. The room stilled, the storm waiting to break. Before I take you into this last storm, I want to pause and say something. If you followed my story this far, then you know how deep betrayal can cut, and how heavy it feels to fight your own blood for survival. If this journey has pulled you in, I'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe. It keeps stories like mine alive, and every voice of support matters. Now, back to the chaos. Charles's eyes gleamed with a madness I had never seen before. His hand clutching the vial like it contained the universe itself. He pressed it against Eden's skin, the glass threatening to shatter with every heartbeat. "Don't come closer," he growled. My chest tightened, the tire iron slick in my grip. One wrong move and my sister could pay the ultimate price. But doing nothing wasn't an option. Not anymore. The room pulsed with silence, the only sound Eden's frantic breathing and Charles's unsteady laugh. My mind raced. What was in that vial? He called it a legacy, something Dad left behind, but Dad's empire was already twisted enough without mysterious liquids that shimmered like mercury. Caleb's warning echoed in my head. This isn't just about money. And suddenly, it clicked. My father hadn't just built businesses. He had secrets, experiments, things even I hadn't been told. My eyes darted to Charles's hand, to the way his knuckles whitened as he held that vial. It wasn't wealth he craved, it was power, the kind of power you couldn't buy. My jaw clenched. "You're insane," I said, my voice shaking but steady. Charles grinned, his teeth flashing in the dim light. "No, brother. I'm enlightened. And Eden, she's going to help me finish what Dad started." Eden whimpered, her eyes begging me to act. One of the guards shifted behind me, his boots scraping the wood floor. My instincts screamed. This was seconds away from erupting. I had to think fast. I forced my voice calm, though my heart hammered like a war drum. "You don't need her, Charles," I said, inching forward. "If Dad's legacy was in that vial, then test it on me. I'm the eldest. I'm the one who should carry it." Charles's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. "Why would you volunteer for what you don't understand?" His question hung heavy, but I knew the truth. If I didn't distract him, Eden wouldn't make it out alive. "Because," I whispered, "I'd rather it kill me than her." For a heartbeat, silence froze the room. Charles's smirk faltered. Eden's tears fell harder. The men behind me hesitated. And in that fragile pause, I knew I had planted doubt, enough to buy a sliver of time. Charles tilted his head, studying me like a predator weighing its prey. "Always the martyr," he sneered, though his grip on Eden loosened just slightly. My pulse quickened. This was it. I shifted my stance, my fingers gripping the iron until my knuckles ached. Then, chaos erupted. Caleb stumbled into the room, pale and shaking but alive, a pistol in his trembling hands. "Drop it, Charles," he croaked, his voice breaking. Everyone froze. Charles laughed bitterly. "The traitor lives. How poetic." He yanked Eden tighter, the vial pressing harder against her skin. "One more step, Caleb, and she bleeds." My brother's eyes darted between us, desperation spilling from him. "Please, don't do this. Dad's gone. We don't need this." But Charles cut him off with a roar. "Don't you dare preach to me. This is mine." His voice cracked like thunder. My muscles tensed. This was my opening. I lunged. The tire iron swung like a blade, colliding with Charles's wrist. The vial slipped, spinning through the air in slow motion. Eden screamed, Charles staggered, and I grabbed her, pulling her free just as the vial shattered against the wooden floor. The liquid hissed, bubbling, eating into the boards like acid. A foul stench filled the room, thick and choking. Everyone froze, horror etched across their faces. Charles stared at the sizzling mess, his face twisting in disbelief. "No," he whispered, dropping to his knees. The men behind me bolted, fear overtaking loyalty. Caleb staggered forward, his gun shaking as he aimed at our brother. "It's over, Charles," he rasped. But Charles looked up, his eyes wild, his face drenched in sweat. "No," he snarled. "It's just beginning." He lunged at me, his hands claws, his body a frenzy of rage and despair. And in that moment, I knew. One of us wasn't leaving alive. The struggle was primal, raw, two brothers locked in a battle born from years of secrets and lies. His fists crashed into me, my ribs screaming with each blow, but rage fueled me, blinding me to the pain. I slammed him back, my knuckles splitting against his jaw. He laughed through blood, a manic sound that made my skin crawl. "You think you're the hero," he spat, pinning me down. "You're nothing without me. Without Dad." His hands closed around my throat, squeezing, stars bursting in my vision. I clawed at his grip, gasping, the world dimming. But then I heard Eden scream my name, raw, desperate, and it snapped something inside me. I surged upward with the last of my strength. grabbing a jagged shard of wood from the shattered floor and driving it into his side. His eyes went wide, his grip loosening. He staggered back, gasping. The room stilled. Charles crumpled, clutching the wound, his eyes burning even as his life slipped away. "It should have been me," he rasped, blood staining his lips. His gaze flickered to Eden, then to me, and for the first time, I saw something other than rage in him. I saw regret. His chest rose once more, then fell. Silence followed. My hands trembled, the shard clattering to the ground. Eden collapsed into my arms, sobbing, her body shaking with relief and terror. Caleb lowered the pistol, his whole body sagging like the weight of years had just crushed him. We stayed there in the wreckage of our father's empire, surrounded by smoke, blood, and the stench of acid. It was over. But the hollow in my chest told me it would never truly be over. I had saved Eden, yes, but the scars of this night would follow us forever. The authorities arrived hours later, summoned by the commotion, by neighbors who had heard the chaos in the night. Statements were taken, bodies removed, and evidence collected. They called Charles's death self-defense. They called me brave. But in the mirror of their words, I saw only exhaustion, grief, and the shadow of a brother I had once loved. Caleb was taken to the hospital, his injuries severe but not fatal. Eden clung to me as though letting go would make me vanish. The police asked about the vial, about the substance that burned through the floor. I told them the truth. I didn't know. Maybe Dad's darkest secret had died with Charles. Maybe it was still out there, waiting. But one thing was clear, no amount of money or power could undo the damage done to our family. The $6 million trust felt like ash in my hands. Weeks passed. The house was sold, the trust fund split, though its value seemed meaningless now. Eden began therapy, her laughter slowly returning, fragile but real. Caleb, scarred inside and out, tried to rebuild what little remained of his life. And me? I stood at the grave of the brother I had killed, torn between relief and sorrow. He had been my rival, my tormentor, my blood. But he had also been my brother. I placed a hand on the cold stone, whispering words I wasn't sure he could hear. "I hope you find peace, wherever you are." The wind carried my voice away, and for the first time in years, I felt light enough to breathe. I walked away, Eden waiting for me at the gate, her hand slipping into mine. We were all that was left. And together, we would start over. Before we close this chapter, I want to thank you for walking this road with me. My story wasn't easy to tell, and it wasn't easy to survive, but if it kept you turning the page, if it made your heart race or your hands clench, then it means it mattered. I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe, because more stories wait in the shadows. Stories of betrayal, redemption, and the thin line between family and enemy. For now, know this: my brother stole my $6 million trust fund. He almost stole my life. But he could never steal my will to fight. And in the end, that's what saved me.